So here we have the 2016 higher level paper, question 3 again, based on timber conversion this time, and a small bit on disease and defects, which we'll get to in the next week or two. So part 1, identify the 2 conversion methods and give 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of each method. So the way I would structure this would be similar to what you would have done or what you should have seen in the previous video on seasoning timber. So if you're comparing, it's so much easier to produce a table. Okay, so here we have our sample answer again. So part 1, so actually writing in 2 methods of conversion are, so then at the top of the table I've put tangentials on and I've put quarter/radials on. Right, you'll see there's 3 marks beside each one of those. So 3 marks for naming tangentials on and 3 marks for naming quarters on, for argument's sake. Alright, so nice and easy to get going. Then we're looking at advantages and disadvantages of each. So I've kind of decided on making a table this time. Alright, there isn't going to be too much of a variance between the 2 methods here. But you should still try and design a table to answer it out. Right, so we'll just run through tangentials on. So strong boards can be produced off it. Reveals a figure grain, right? So the flame grain, which can be produced. That comes up as a short question to draw that out. So 1 mark for each of those. Disadvantages then: high labour costs and more waste produced. So high labour cost, it has to be rotated every single cut. Right, so that's the issue there. And then we look at quarter sawn and radial sawn. So you get a silver grain effect. That's just in oak. So when it's cut in this particular fashion, you get silver little lines running through it. And then a stable and hard wearing boards. Right, so these would be the preferred boards for timber flooring, right, because they wear evenly across. And then your disadvantages then for that: smaller boards and it's more expensive. Right, so both methods are expensive to actually do. Alright, so the total marks there for part 1 is 14. Okay, so you get 3 for naming each of them. Alright, so that'll be 6 out of 14, and then you get 1 for each of the advantages and disadvantages that you name. Alright, so fairly handy to pick up marks there, in my opinion. And then we look at part 2, so name and describe. Using a neat freehand sketch, 1 other timber method conversion, so there's only 1 left really. Okay, so name and through sawn, you get 4 marks. And then for a bit of an explanation, you get 2 marks. So the drawing is fairly straightforward. So you draw your circle or your log, and then you can put on your grain pattern as it would on the end, and then put in where your cuts are made. Alright, so then a little bit of an explanation for it then. In through sawn, the log is cut lengthways or parallel to the grain, mainly used for softwood timbers like red deal. And it's a very fast method of conversion, right? So it's the fastest method. Okay, so you get 6 marks there, just by naming and a little bit of an explanation. All right, so that's that part. So that's on conversion. That's as much detail as you could go into on that. Now part 3 and part 4 is based on diseases and defects, but part 3 and part 4 could easily be based on seasoning as well. All right, so part 3. 2 types of timber decay are wet rot and dry rot. Okay, so describe the conditions necessary for dry rot to occur. Okay, so dry rot occurs. So dry rot usually occurs in damp areas with poor ventilation when spores germinate and start to grow. The fungi can get moisture through white silky threads called hyphae. Alright, you may come across that term in science. The attack can seriously damage large areas of woodwork, so in brackets there, floor or roof timbers, right? So they'd be your main large areas. Weakening infected wood, most likely to occur indoors, but it can happen outside as well. Right, so you'll see I've marked a couple of things there in red or in a red box. So they would be like the main points that you'd be looking for in the likes of this question here. Okay, so other buzz things might be spores, food then, so the rot's going to feed off the wood itself, heat, right, so if it's occurring indoors it's going to be warm, moisture has to be high, so over 20% for it to occur, poor ventilation, we have that mentioned, and then warmth indoors, we have that mentioned as well. Alright, so again that'll make more sense when we get through it. And then we have part 4. Name 2 types of wood preservative and describe 3 methods of applying preservatives to wood. Alright, so if you look down here at the bottom of the page now, 2 types of wood preservative, water-based finished and solvent-based finished. Again, you're getting 3 marks for naming each of these, and then, you know, it's a chapter that we still haven't gone through, which I'll probably try and hit next week. And then you have to name 3 methods of applying a finish or a preservative, as the question stated. We've come across 3 methods of applying a finish. You know, you could take the same approach here. It's just a different word. So you could brush it on, you could spray it on, you could roll it on, you could put it on with a cloth, you could dip the wood and allow the finish to soak into it. You could pressure treat it, so force the finish into it. Alright, so there's a couple of different variations here. So the total for part 4 there is 12 marks. So 12 marks, you're writing very little. I know it's very specific, but you know, you can gain massively out of it. So again, looking at the structure of the question or the answer, it's laid out quite clearly where part 1, 2, 3 and 4 is. Alright. When you're answering your questions now, can you, if you don't know a part or you cannot figure it out, can you leave a space to come back and answer it? Don't just put part 3 directly under part 2 there just because you don't know what part 2 is. Alright, so leave the space and then you might be able to come back and answer when you look through my answers online, okay? So that's a question on conversion, right? So conversion more than likely would be combined with some other form of topic as well, right? Which you're more than capable of answering anyway, okay?